Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Fox 2 News meteorologist Chris Higgins. Chris's Corner video update for Saturday afternoon. Yes, snow is on the way. This is not a blockbuster storm by any means. It may end up being one of the bigger snows so far this season for some of you. But overall, we're looking at just a nice sized snow event that will help give the kids something to do on their extra day off for President's Day on Monday. It does look like accumulating snow and enough to shovel and enough to sled on. For some of you, adding to what you've already got on the ground, and for the rest of us, adding to our seasonal totals. So let's get to the detail. Let's get you started with the water vapor imagery. The storm system we're watching is a hybrid Alberta Clipper. It's not really clipping, so we can't necessarily call it a purebred clipper, but it is dropping down in the northwest flow down across out of Canada into northern sections of the Dakotas right now. This is going to slide onto the south and then eventually east-southeast into the mid-Mississippi Valley, and it's going to bring us our two-part storm system. Once again, wave one will be in the form of warm air advection, which doesn't look terribly impressive, certainly not as strong as it has looked on some of the previous model runs, and that'll be followed up by the upper low itself, which will rotate through about 8 to 10 hours later. A couple of key changes in the models. Obviously, the 0Z runs did not look as good if you've been following along with the discussion. The 12Z models have come back into alignment. But a couple of key changes. One, the first wave, which we're looking at right here, is not as strong. The biggest change is there's no longer an 850 millibar closed low. It's more of an open wave or a short wave between 700 and 850 millibars. So that will cut down on the pole and the amount of warm air that can be pushed northward into the cold air. What we're going to track still with this system as a hybrid clipper will be the surface low and the pretty close to a closed 900 millibar circulation. And we're going to put the most significant snow north of the surface low and right under and just to the right of the track of the 900 millibar low. That still lines up with our thinking, with my thinking from yesterday, taking it from west central Missouri right down the Missouri River into the heart of the St. Louis metro and then extending to the southeast from there as it weakens. This actual surface low and mid-level center, low to mid-level center with the warm air advection will tend to weaken as we wait for the main upper level low to come dropping down from the south. But in general, I'm liking in the heart of that band about 1 to 2 inches. 2 would be on the high side, most closer to an inch Saturday night into early Sunday. This whole weather event has slowed down some, so the onset of snowfall into the St. Louis area will be after midnight tonight and prime time between about 3 a.m. and 8 a.m. tomorrow morning with phase one. So again, about an inch, maybe 2. There is still the possibility of some sleet mixing in, especially over the far southern counties closer to the surface low, but for the most part this does look like mostly snow. And again, the max track should be right down the Missouri River into the heart of the St. Louis area and then extending east-southeast from there with a 1 to 2 inch snowfall tonight, lighter amounts north and south from there. What now appears to be the biggest snowmaker of this event is the wraparound or the deformation zone to the north of the 500 millibar vorticity maximum, which is a pretty stout looking vortmax, and underneath the strengthening center of low pressure at 500 millibars. At this point, this has the potential to be the strongest snowmaker with us, and certainly is the most likely snowmaker area-wide. As we take a look at the tracks, there are still some variabilities here as to the exact track, but kind of a consensus between yesterday's models and today's and the overall general thinking that I've had here. I've dropped the eastern portion of this track a little bit further to the south, but kept most of the rest of it in line. Taking the vortmax on a track from 24 to 36 hours through western Missouri down to the southeast into southeastern Missouri into western Kentucky and then eventually into northern Tennessee. At the same time, depending on which model you look at, the 500 millibar low closes off somewhere between northwestern Missouri and central Missouri and then begins to pivot as it goes neutrally tilted and then even a little bit negatively tilted as it approaches the Ohio River. Because the snowfall ratios, liquid snowfall ratios, will be somewhat higher with this second phase, I'm going to keep a 2 to 3 inch snowfall with this band centered right underneath the 500 millibar low and roughly 1.5 to 2 degrees to the left of the track of the 500 millibar vortmax, which paints a stripe out of northwestern Missouri into the heart of the St. Louis metro once again and then extending to the southeast towards Mount Vernon and then into southern Illinois and southern Indiana from there. Inside that band, 2 to 3 inches, and this again, this has been delayed somewhat. It looks like it will be sometime late afternoon, very late afternoon, or more likely evening into the early overnight hours Sunday night with that 2 to 3 inches. There's also an indication of some instability right at the top of the clouds on the NAM and the GFS. Uh, not instability as far as CAPE, but lapse rates, and as a result, we might get some slight convective enhancement into some of the snow band, in the very narrow snow band, just along the 500 millibar track. So that's something that may enhance the snowfall at times right along that 500 millibar track. So here's what it all pans down to. Again, I haven't really changed this a whole lot, really not at all. Just a few tweaks here and there. A general 3 to 6 inch snow band I'm going to go with right along the Missouri River through St. Louis and extending east and southeast, where both the warm air advection and the wraparound snows, the deformation zones, are most likely to overlap. Now, I really think more in the line of 3 to 5 inches is probably going to be right, but I'm going to keep the 6 on there, one for consistency's sake, and two because there may be some enhanced convective elements within there, and if they train over the same areas, which is possible for a brief time, that could add a quick extra inch on top. But in general, think 3 to 5, isolated 6. And actually, when I post on the air tonight, I may just go 3 to 5 and toss out verbally the 6. So don't be surprised or worried if you see me say 3 to 5 on the air tonight, just to simplify things. But that's a general look at my thoughts going into this evening as I get ready to prepare for the evening shows. We'll, of course, keep you posted on Fox 2 News.